Before I get started, I do want to thank Mark Few. Not only did he have an incredible year, but he gave Jud the chance to enjoy basketball away from us, and he became a huge Gonzaga fan. And I say that, Mark, I don't know if it was Mondays or Tuesdays with Jud, but whatever you did, I mean, he always called me, and probably like he did me to you, you to me, told me what you were doing wrong and what was going on, but we got a chance to spend some time together, and I do want to thank you for what you did. I'm going to try to wrap it up and keep it as short as I can, but I've had a few honors at Michigan State, mostly because of what Jud has done for me, but none more moving and emotional than saying goodbye to Coach today. There are only a few people in the country who that are known immediately by their first name. It's not as many as you would think. I thought about Michael, but it could have been Jordan or Jackson. I thought about Jud's good friend Bo Schembechler, but it could have been Bo Ryan, Bo Jackson, or even Bo Derek. But we know there is only one Jud. Most liked him, many loved him, but all respected him. Think of Jud, and there's a million funny stories that come to mind. Bouncing the ball off his face at Illinois was one that, as I stood up to try to catch him and saw his nose starting to bleed, and I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Get your hands off me." And I sat right back down. But once, there were a few things that happened behind the scenes. Like one time, I think it was Gregory's year, they were waiting in the airport, and the luggage wasn't coming out fast enough. So Jud disappeared into the back, and lo and behold, a few seconds later, here come the luggage on the belt, and here come Jud riding the belt. Was that yours? Yeah. That was before my time. And of course, who could forget the time that we were at Northwestern, and Bev was with us, and we were all on the plane. We had won a big game. It was snowing out. They were going to de-ice the plane. So they told us to wait inside. And so Jud, a man of great patience, as we all know, said, "The hell with this," and oh, sorry, Pastor. But he said that we're going. So he grabbed Bev, and those two started walking out and going up the steps of the plane, and just as they did, the rest of us were sitting there watching, and the de-icer machine came over the top and covered Bev and Jud. And so I got to admit, the team was laughing their butts off inside, and Jud kind of handled it like a pro. He just sat there fuming and mad, but thank God Bev was with us, because she was the only one that could sit next to him. So Bev, I want to thank you for that, although she was covered too. Jud loved the game more than anything and was a champion for coaches. You cannot believe how many coaches he would call. Anytime a guy got fired, lost a game, I'd just listen in his room, and he'd be calling coaches. He would often remind me that the game, as they said, is bigger than one person. The day after he passed, I had an NABC meeting, which was a big deal to Jud to be on the NABC board. And it was something I'm not sure I wanted to do, but I felt obligated to do because of his importance. And when I got there, everybody started telling stories and telling a Jud joke. And as the day went on, I realized that how lucky I was, because they each had one, and I had heard 1,000. And I enjoyed 1,000. The next day, I got calls from Katie and Knight. I got calls from NBA guys like Doc Rivers and Van Gundy. I even got calls from former refs, many of them, which is ironic because I could write a book, an R-rated book called Things Jud Said to the Ref. They all had one story, and I was pretty much part of everyone they told. I had a million Jud moments that I'll never, ever forget. We will celebrate Jud's legacy this season in many ways, including a Jud patch that we're going to wear. on our uniforms. On February. On February 10th, our game against Purdue will be the Jud Heathcote tribute game. We've already got Gene Katie to come back, so that ought to be entertaining in itself, since Gene was his second best friend, probably in the coaching profession next to Don. But I can't wait until we get so many of those former players back all together to tell their favorite Jud stories. Any success I've had, I owe to Coach. Spartan basketball is what he developed, and I've just tried to maintain and grow it. But because of Jud, he taught me so many things that as my career goes on, I use so many of them each and every day. I tell my secretary, as probably we all do, that, I wanted to change a few things. I did not want to hit my head. I valued my health. I did not want to be so negative. That didn't change either, but I often said to Lori, as the days and years go on, now I see why Jud did this, and now I see why Jud did that. And probably the most important thing he taught me was my first year as a full-time assistant. After Mike Dean went to Siena, they hired me back. And things weren't going too well, and there were people writing articles about firing Jud. And we'd come to practice, and we had a media day each year. Smitty was, I think, a freshman then, and we'd have a media day once a week. And these media guys that come in, and my UP background, I disliked them all because they were ripping my boss and my mentor. And he would get done with the session, he'd put his arm around guys, he'd be telling them jokes as they left. And finally one day I said, Coach, how can you put your arm around that SOB? How can you do this and that? How can you laugh with him? And he said, you better learn something early, son, in this profession and in life. Everybody's got a boss, everybody's got a job, and everybody's got a family to feed. So don't look at things like you're looking at them now. To this day, I think I have a great relationship from the media, and it's all because of Jud. He taught me the job. He got me the job. And perhaps even more important to me, he helped me survive the job. On perhaps a different look, I worked for Jud for 12 years. He was my mentor and advisor for 22 years. And now, God's got him for eternity. Good luck. He was always there to provide support, and I needed that very often in my early days. He was always there for me, as he was the first game I coached in. It was in Maui. Sitting right behind the bench was Jud Heathcote as we blew out Chaminade by 2. It was great having him at just about every NCAA tournament game, including the national championship game in Indy. He wrote after many games, never failed to not call. He understood the situations. When we lost, it was a positive call. When we won, it was always about how bad our guards played and why don't I play more zone. The night before the national championship game, we were in our film room. We had just beaten Wisconsin in maybe the ugliest game known to mankind. And Jud walked in and, the first thing he said is, Tom, where's the beer? I said, Coach, we got players coming in for me. I can't have beer in there. So he went out, he came back in, and he had 2 bottles of beer, 1 in each pocket. And he says, I got to tell you a little bit about your team. He says, your guards aren't very good. They can't shoot the ball. Your defense was pretty good tonight, but you turned the ball over too much. And he went on and on and on and on and on. And for the first time in my life, the night before the national championship game, I talked back to him a little bit. I said, Coach, we did all these things wrong. We got bad guards. We can't shoot the ball. We're not great defensively, But geez, we're still playing for a national championship tomorrow, Coach. Well, geez, Tom, you don't have to take it personal, he said. I just was trying to help you out. So when Jud left coaching, he cleaned out his office. And I walked in there, and his office was completely naked. There wasn't a spot on anywhere, not a paper, not anything. He flipped me the key, and he walked out the door. And I felt bad. It was like a Western movie. I'm not going to walk down the hallway. And I opened up the drawer in the front of the desk, and there was a yellow legal pad there, and it had all these things written on it, and he had numbered them. And it went all the way to 74. 74, and it was titled Things to Remember. The first one was treat your secretary well. The second one was don't forget where you came from. The third one was treat your janitors well. Remember, the little people are important. And the fourth one was amazing. He says, accept the fact, I'll tell you what he said, Pastor, no salt in the chair, that you're going to get screwed by the officials for 2 or 3 straight years, so don't let it bother you. Well, Jud, thanks to the way you treated those officials for 20 years, it's now 22 years later, I still haven't gotten a call and I'm still getting screwed. So, I don't know how that went, but Jud meant the world to me, as he has many of the players that are here and the managers and assistant coaches. The day after he died, Steve Smith called, and I got a text from Scott Skiles. And I say those two guys because, unlike Gregory, none of us were recruited heavily. You know, none of us were household names in high school or beyond. And we were just talking, and I talked to Steve a while, and Scott sent me a text, and he says, he said, where would I be without Jud? I thought if I answered in jail, it wouldn't have been a good thing. So I said, Scott, you would have made it, you know. And Steve kind of said the same thing. And Scott said, you know, I'm not going to cry tonight. I'm going to laugh. I'm going to remember 2 things he said to me, one to me and one to the media, every single press conference. Jud would tell Scott, be a guard, not a garbage. Remember hearing that? And then Scott said, and he'd tell the media, Skiles isn't very quick, but he makes up for it by being really slow. And you know, as I thought about Steve and Tom and Scott, it made me realize that beyond all the one-liners, Jud transformed lives. We all agreed that we wouldn't be anywhere without him. He's helped each and every one of us become successful in our own way, and there's many others here. He saw potential in us, which was his word. Some that few did. He helped us accomplish more than we ever dreamed we could accomplish. So in closing, Jud cared for people around him more than he ever showed. It was hard for him to tell you. And we were all afraid to tell him how much he meant to us. But both parties just knew. The admiration was mutual. There's been a fear for 34 years now of telling Jud I loved him. That fear ends today. Whatever time I have left, I'm dedicating not a season, the rest of my career, to upholding what he built, what he taught me, and what he did for me. So Bev, and all the kids, thank you for helping me. And Jud, I love you. And I finally get to say it. Thank you.